Dear students, good morning. Welcome to Law Excellence IAS. Let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 7th September 2020. The first article for discussion, Courts Drift and Chinks in the Judiciary Armour. In this article, author takes two important events. One is providing punishment to contempt of court to Prashant Bhushan, and second is retirement of Mr. Mishra, Justice Mishra, from the court. In these two events, how the judiciary is being exposed, the author is trying to talk about. From exam perspective, we talk about the legitimacy of judiciary and the challenges the judiciary is facing today. These 2 points we will focus upon. To understand this, let us understand about grand bargain between the state and citizens. Who is the neutral person adjudge this grand bargain? That is what we have to see. When there is something called contract between the state and the citizen, state shall protect the rights of the citizen, or state has to guarantee the life liberty of the citizen, and citizen will compromise a part of his independence and also show his loyalty towards the state. This is the grand bargain between the state system and the citizen. In this context, across the world we saw that the state itself can become an institution that can take away the rights of the citizens. We saw the Hitler and Mussolini and also Pol Pot, everyone. So state can be an institution that can take away the rights of its citizens. In this context, one institution has to stand against the state in favor of the rights of the citizen. It has to be a neutral arbitrator between the apparatus of the state and the citizen. That is to be called as judiciary. Let us understand it clearly. So judiciary is meant to protect the rights and liberties of the citizen, and it has to be the protector of the constitution which has guaranteed us these rights and liberties. In this case, judiciary's legitimacy, dignity and respect comes from its judgments. It builds connect and trust with the common people. So judicial independence flows from the public trust. And public trust, where it is coming from? Judgments and also the conduct of judges. Today we see many challenges to it. One is Chief Justice of India is master of the roster. It means which case has to go to which bench, CJI will decide. In such a situation, there is something called packaging the bench or bench packing. It means filling the bench with all reliable and favorable judges so that the outcome of the judgment is clearly predictable. Second is filling the Supreme Court with pro-government judges and creating favorable conditions for the government of the day in court. It is visible. This is what author describes as executive court. This kind of executive court is dangerous to the rights and to the Constitution of India. Second is judges taking up politically colored posts after their retirement is another issue. You saw judges taking up governor positions like governor, member of parliament, Rajya Sabha, etc. This is clearly a conflict of interest with regard to the responsibilities they have to fulfill. And then today, four judges, I think 3 years back, four judges, they came out in open and stated that the Supreme Court is failing to protect the Constitution. They have clearly exposed their anguish. So, Mr. Y.V. Chandrachud, when he was the Chief Justice of India, he stated that there is a greater threat to independence of judiciary from within than without. If you clearly understand growing corruption, growing alliance with the executive, inability to protect rights of the citizens, and then the master of the roster and misuse of it, all these are the threats the judiciary is facing. Today, we need to build a case allocation system that is neutral and rule based. It will prevent the bench packing of judges with favorable people, and it helps to provide for rule of law in the country. It is essential to demonstrate neutrality, impartiality and transparency of Supreme Court in India. That is the point over here. The next article is Policy Lessons in Tamil Nadu's Language Formula. So first let us talk about Singapore's model over here with regard to lingua franca of the nation. In Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew, the reformist prime minister, he has brought in two language formula. One, every child has to be taught mother tongue, and second is English. When he made this decision, Chinese people they formed, or people of China origin, they formed around 74% of Singapore. In spite of they being huge in number, he has respected the plurality of Singapore and ensured a common link language. The principle which he followed was equidistant from every language on this land to ensure equality of languages. So, if making Hindi as an official language of India, it gives preference to someone at the cost of others. So that's why the principle of equidistance has to be appreciated in deciding the official language of the state. In this scenario, in Tamil Nadu, when Annadurai was the chief minister, he ensured Tamil and English, these two are the languages that have to be taught in the schools. In many of the European countries where the entire continent is linguistically diverse, the people are expected to learn mother tongue during their schooling, and when they come to the mid schools, can choose any other foreign language which they want to prepare for, which they want to learn. So in that way, the choice was given to the people. In India also, with regard to the policy on education or language policy, we have to ensure this process. It can prepare India for global world as it prepared Singapore for global world. That is the essence here. The next is mixed messaging. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he has recently addressed India-USA Strategic Partnership Forum. In this, he has stated, India is a fine destination for investors. He tried to instill confidence in foreign investors. Why? The reason is many of these investors want to move away from China. That is the first thing. Second thing, in the midst of uncertainties, global supply chains have become very stretched. Our global supply chains are facing enormous challenges. And growing US tensions, US China tensions are putting much strain on these supply chains. So Japan and every country is looking to move out of China. So India wants to attract those investors. Remember, what is the mixed messaging over here? There are two things. One, India did not join RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. So any good which is exported from India will attract extra tariffs and duties to the member countries of RCEP. That is one disadvantage. So what an investor wants, policy predictability, and the next is barrier-free market, unrestricted market access. In this case, India is today talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat, which is talking about self-reliant India. And Ministry of Defense, many other took various steps to produce the goods in India itself. It is kind of import substitution. So the self-reliant India versus global investors, calling the global investors for India, there is a mixed messaging which is going to them. So India has to ensure policy predictability, remove the necessary confusions to the investors, and increase business friendliness, and finally has to ensure stability of investments that ensures the flow of money into India. That is what article is saying. Too close for comfort. Every day we are talking about the issues of China. This is another thing in that. Recently at Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting, defense ministers met. External affairs ministers of India and China are supposed to meet in the coming days. Indian defense minister stated that China violated the bilateral agreements. And Chinese defense minister has replied that it is not ready to lose even an inch of land, and it can protect its sovereignty and unity, integrity, etc. In this case, we need to give a chance to diplomacy. Diplomacy is the only way out. That is what author is suggesting here. Fact checking should become more effective. Today in media, there is a rush for populism and sensationalism. Obviously, the victim is fact checking. What has to guide the media getting it right? The world school of thought clearly states that get it right. So the major reason is rise in electronic media and social media have given rise to alternate news, alternate facts, or disinformation. And today many news channels wants to spread this disinformation first in a rush to take the news first to the customer. And news has become a big commercial entity like never before. In this scenario, recently you might have seen a tombstone of Galwan soldiers of China And some newspapers and electronic media channels have published this across. Then there is Alt News Full Fact. It's a fact-checking news organizations. They have reported that this is wrong. These are the pictures from 2011. So, in a rush for populism, we are compromising the trust of readers, and it is dangerous for media in the long run. Next is trying to use the contempt clause to stifle criticism is counterproductive. As it's the interview of Mr. Prashant Bhushan, he says, for contempt of court, there is no appeal petition possible. Only you can file for a review before the concerned court, where the meeting can happen closed doors. And court has called him arrogant. In this case, he says self-righteous ego is a must for any self-respecting and truth-loving person. Self-righteous ego he spoke about. Why I have collected this statement, it is good for your ethics answer writing. Finally, you need to remember, any institution is expected to degenerate if it lives in a shell. So, feedback is essential. So, stifling criticism is counterproductive to any institution, either it is CAG, Election Commission, or UPSC, or for that matter, Supreme Court. These are the points you need to remember. The next article is about FCRA, Foreign Contributions Regulation Act. You know, various organizations like Sabarang Trust, Lawyers Collective, these are banned using an act that is called FCRA. FCRA permission or license is required for non-profit organizations to get foreign funds. Here you have to remember one point. Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, it has been amended to ensure certain stifling rules in it. What are they? If any organization is placed, a donor, foreign donor is placed in watch list or prior permission category, he or she cannot donate to an NGO in India directly. It has to go through the clearance of Home Ministry. And second, FCRA donations to political parties are encouraged and liberalized, but not to NGOs. Many of the critical NGOs of the policies of the government, these are stifled using these FCRAs. If you observe, 95% of the funds which are coming to NGOs are being spent in health, education, etc. But 5% of the funds government taking into account to stifle the entire FCRA related organizations. One of the major objection of the government is that these funds are being used for conversions on the ground and change the demographic profile and religious profile on the ground. So, what we can say over here, a criticism has to be accepted by the government. But however, criticism, a genuine criticism, and then an anti-national act, these are two different things. An anti-national act, if it has been, or else a genuine criticism, if it has been stated as anti-national act, and if they impose these kind of limitations, it can stifle voice of the people in this country. That is the point we need to understand. Kesavananda Bharati versus State of Kerala, 1973. It is a famous judgment in which Supreme Court gave the philosophy of basic structure of the Constitution. Parliament can amend any part of the Constitution other than the basic structure, and what constitutes the basic structure is not defined by the Supreme Court, and it is still not been defined. In this case, the Constitution is supreme to every organ of the state, either executive, legislature, or judiciary. This judgment is the basis for that reasoning. So, Mr. Kesavananda Bharati will be remembered as the protector of the Constitution during the times of Indira Gandhi. So, if you go back into this case, Kerala Land Reforms Act, which was passed by the Legislative Assembly of Kerala, was challenged. This act intends to take away the lands of various religious organizations. And when it was further dwelt, Falkiwala, the great jurist Nani Palkiwala, he has took this opportunity to raise the various issues before the Supreme Court. 13-judge bench was constituted, and 24th and 25th Amendments Acts were challenged. Finally, the basic structure of the Constitution is outcome of this judgment. India-Iran discuss Afghan peace process. You know, Afghan peace process is critical both for India and also Iran. In this scenario, To provide an alternative route to Afghanistan to give it supplies, India intend to build Chabahar port. And India-Iran also got few differences on that recently because of the delays from Indian side. The notable point over here is Iranian side has raised the concern over the safety of minorities in India. Iran's language is changing towards India. You need to observe that. The next is Morplah rioters, not freedom fighters, says report. It is a report submitted to Indian Council of Historical Research. Here we have Morplah rebellion, which happened in 1921 along with Khilafat movement. There is a class structure in Kerala. Hindus were landlords and peasants were Muslims. And Hindus who are landlords has got the support of the British. In this case, these Morplah rebellion, or which is also called Malabar rebellion, is against the landlords and also against the British. And it has finally took a communal color where Muslims have revolted against the Hindus. Now this report, what it says is, it's a communal riot and the Morplah rebellion leaders shall not be included in the list of freedom fighters. That's what the report states. This is two names you remember who are the leaders of Morplah rebellion, Ali Musliar and Wariam Kunat Ahmad Haji. These are the two names you need to remember. Thank you very much. Have a great day.